of you for being such a support group for the people here who really are, struggling with isolation and things like that. Also, Lawrence, I don't know whether this is a proper forum. Uh, we'd like to send Naima a thank you note, but we don't know her address. Can she send that to me?
Yeah, if Naima is on today, you can private message her in the chat.
Okay.
And if not, you could send it to me, and then I will send it to her, because I meet with her from time to time for various other things. So
yeah, and it was wonderful. It was some journaling books and some craft coloring books, adult coloring books, and was very appropriate and very useful for the people here. So we really appreciate it. So it was random act of kindness for sure.
Yes.
And it meant a lot.
Yes. Yes. That's the kind of thing I hope we can get into today. Well, we're going to get started. As if it follows its usual pattern, we'll get other people will show up later. But today's discussion is about random acts of kindness. We have at least one new person today that hasn't joined us before. And so I'm thinking we should just make a quick go around and introduce ourselves. I know who I am, but sort of. But so why don't we start with Ryan?
I'm Ryan Woodard. I do communications and outreach for the South Dakota Humanities Council, and Lawrence and I started this program, 3 or 4 months ago, something like that. And we've really enjoyed it. So,
okay, Dr. Woodard.
Charles Woodard, Ryan's dad, and I'm retired from the SDSU English department.
Barb?
Barbara Johnson, and I'm presently in Sioux Falls. I'm the stained glass lady, and in the past, while my health permitted, did programs on stained glass throughout South Dakota.
Okay, great. Benny?
I'm Betty Sheldon. I am retired and live in Aberdeen, which is my hometown, to which I returned when I retired from a variety of lifetime pursuits so I could really start pursuing my life. I'm really grateful for this program. Thanks to Ryan and Lawrence, and pleased to meet you, Dr. Woodard. As they say, your reputation precedes you. Your name came up last week a few times, so glad to meet you.
Good to meet you.
Alphonse?
Alphonse Keesley, also retired, University of Colorado Boulder. And yes, pleased to meet you as well.
And Lynn?
Lynn Hart. Just Lynn Hart. Nice to meet everybody and just kind of listening today. So it's good to see you, Lynn.
All right, good. Well, get this conversation started. I'd like to kind of go around and ask anyone, and of course, if I'll restate this as I try to do every week, if you don't feel like you want to say something, don't feel like it's a pressure. It's a let's say an extended invitation. We'll put it that way, and a sincere invitation, because to join in the conversation, because it's hard to get out of something like this more than you put into it, and it's a kind of this is a kind of crowdsourcing of information, and whatever you have to offer, I feel is valuable. It doesn't have to be the same thing as everyone else. You don't have to be on the same page as everyone else. The more views that we can get on something, the better it is for us to see. The example I like to use is, if you put your finger about 6 to 9 inches in front of your face, about in the middle, and you close one eye and then alternate eyes, you'll notice that the finger jumps around. And that's because each eye has a different point of view. So if there can be 2 points of view in one head, imagine how many views there are in more heads. So the idea there is, you know, every point of view is valid. The finger didn't change, just how you're looking at it changed. And so in that same way, I like to get other people's view on something. And the more accurate you are able to present your point of view, the more we can all benefit from it. Even if we say, okay, well, I can't see it from that position because I'm not in your position, but I can respect that you see it from that position. And therefore I can get something out of it. That has always benefited me, so I offer that to you as well. That said, I'd like to ask each of you, how would you, somebody says random acts of kindness, what does that mean to you? Yeah, or does it mean anything? You know, if it means something, tell me, what does it mean? Betty.
Start, Lawrence, if you want.
Betty has something to say.
You have something? Okay.
Don't I always? I guess the first time I heard that phrase that I remember was when somebody was talking about going over and leaving a note on somebody's windshield, and you get in the car and you think it's going to be a ticket or something, and it turns out to be a kindly note or something helpful. I'm also reminded this morning of my dad, who was probably exemplary of random acts of kindness, which I didn't really recognize until later, because he was a quiet, humble man who did his job and raised his family. But he would tell me to go, like my mother had some relatives visiting in the front room of our old house, and I was just a young girl, and he said, go in and offer Aunt Gladys a glass of water. And I just looked at him, you know, well, I was embarrassed. I didn't want to do that. But on through his life and after his death, I have learned from other friends of things he did for their family down the street who was poor, quote unquote. And so I think he lived his life a lot on random acts of kindness without any expectation of thanks or payback in any way.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Hey, thank you, Betty. Anyone else?
Well, I wonder about the word random.
Mm-hmm.
I think, well, it suggests that you see an opportunity, I guess, and do something kind. But then again, I especially value consistent and dependable kindness.
Mm.
In other words, always being kind. My grandmother, my mother's mom, was the kindest person I've ever known.
Mm.
And she helped raise me. She just lived a couple of blocks or a couple of houses down from our house in our little hometown. And she was just so constantly kind. There was nothing ever random about her kindness. It was just everywhere apparent. And my mom was much influenced by that. So she emphasized kindness too. And her mantra when we were growing up, my sister and I, was from Ephesians. She'd say, be kind one to another. And Ryan can smile or maybe wince at this because he got the same mantra, I think, from his grandma. She would say that pretty insistently. She'd say it sometimes when something unkind was going on, but she really liked to have that as a way of being. And both of those women have been pretty important in my life in terms of how I try to behave. I think I don't measure up to either one of them, but I'd like to.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Anyone else?
I'm coming in late. What was the topic? Something about acts of kindness. I wonder.
We're talking about random acts of kindness, and at this point, we're looking at what do you think it is? I'm going to talk a little bit about it to kind of give some focus on where I'm coming from in this conversation. But I value your opinions and I hear your views as much as my own. So I'm asking other people, what do you see?
What
How
is,
you hear that word? You hear the word or the phrase random act of kindness. What comes to mind? How do you feel about that?
oh, that's a great topic. And saying random, I would say without telling anybody about it, do it continuously all the time, whenever you see it, surprising many people. And that would exemplify my second husband, Tom, who's in memory care. I could tell you many examples, many, never tells people. We would go for long walks. He would pick up everything he saw and put them in his pockets to recycle or destroy. He just said, well, we need to clean up our world. We'd go to the grocery store. He's got the cart behind me, and I run and have my list, and he follows. And all of a sudden he's gone. And he's in the next aisle. Some lady's reaching for something. She's helping her child. Go in the parking lot. He's trying to help the woman get her child in the car seat. And he said, well, I can put your groceries away. Just on his own, all the time. And now he's in memory care. And he stands by where they're making all the medications for the patients. He stands at the door. They just told me this the other day. And they said, he'll just stand looking fine. He said, is there something I can do to help you here? I think he comes by it from his mother. But it's definitely random. It's not planned. I find out more and more about it. Sorry about that. Let me just take it off the hook. My phone has been ringing since 5 this morning. Anyway, I forgot my train of thought. Oh, now that he is, I'm hearing more about it. There are people that he was a hunter. He was a hunter, and yet he was more interested in the mechanics of the whole thing and sharpshooting, and was head of shooting sports in the state. That's all new to me. But I have people telling me, he said, well, here, why don't you try this gun? It might be a little better. And he said, well, no, you can borrow it. Well, it's for life with him. He did this time, and he's never told me this. These are other people telling me. And that's his story. To me, that's random acts of kindness to the nth degree.
Very much, very much. Thank you very much for that. Anyone else have something to contribute on this subject? What do you think? Random acts of kindness. How do you think about it?
Well, I had a recent experience that kind of gave me the idea for this whole topic. And I told Lawrence this story when we were brainstorming our brainstorming sessions yesterday. I had an opportunity for a random act of kindness that just sort of fell into my lap. I was doing the Target pickup thing, and I was sitting in my car, and usually it takes like 10 minutes, but I sat there for 45 minutes waiting, and I was starting to get really irritated. And I thought I could either let this bother me and get upset and call the store and say, where is my order? But I thought, you know what? Deep breath, I'm just going to forget about it. I'm going to cancel my order and I'm going to leave. So then I went to Walgreens and I went in the store because I really needed something. And I got in the checkout line behind this woman who I could tell that she didn't have much. She was counting her change and everything for her transaction to see if she had enough money. And I saw the cashier, she put these 2 Hershey bars that this woman had. She put those to the side because obviously she didn't have enough money for them. And I said, oh, you can just, put that on my tab. That's fine. And this woman looked at me, and just the look on her face, she said, thank you so much for that. And it was just a totally random thing that it just fell into my lap, like I said, and it was so easy. It was like $1 maybe. And just the look on this person's face, and I carried a good feeling with me for like the next 2 hours. And what was interesting to me, and my dad has talked to me a lot about this, is, turning negative experiences into positive energy. If I would have sat there at Target and complained and said, where's my order, then I wouldn't have had this opportunity to just do this extremely simple thing of just buying this poor woman these 2 Hershey bars. Yeah, that just really stuck with me. And that's why I was telling the story to Lawrence, and I suggested this would be a really good topic. So, because it was just so easy,
I think that's a very good example, Ryan, of a random act of kindness. Anyone else?
Oh, you there?
Yep.
Uh, kindness is a natural thing. When you're driving down the street even and a squirrel jumps in front of you, do you brake for it? That's called kindness. Let it live. I've been blessed to receive and give kindness because my grandma always said, be nice, always be nice. Every time I went out the door, she'd always say that. Now, boys, be nice, always be nice. And in a way, it's kind of like follow the golden rule, that too. And but yeah, I mean, I've been blessed with humor, being a rodeo clown for many years, and displaying kindness that way, and making people laugh that weren't supposed to be laughing that day. That's an act of kindness. To give part of yourself to somebody else that doesn't realize they need to laugh, but you make them laugh, and you just never know where kindness goes, I guess. And so, to me, kindness is a prayer. Every day I wake up, I ask to do the right things, to be at the right place, and be as kind as I can to the world. So, with all due respect, kindness should be natural, and that's about all I know about that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for that. Thank you. Anyone else have something they want to add to this topic? Well, if you think of something, of course, anytime we can explore that. I want to talk about random acts of kindness from my experiential point of view. When I say random act of kindness, I really mean without intent of some kind of payback or without forethought. It's about having kindness be about who you are rather than what you think. It doesn't take pre-planning. It's responsive. In other words, you see something, you do it. You see an opportunity to be kind, and you do it. It's not planned. You don't say, okay, I'm going to, like, I may, and I do, make some donation to, Feed South Dakota. That's not, to me, that's not a random act of kindness because I didn't just suddenly decide to do that. I plan all year. to do things like that. So that to me is not a random act of kindness. I don't even know who's getting the food, and I don't care. I just want to put some wind in the sails of the people who are trying to find those people who need it, because I can't do it. And the amount of money that I can give to that wouldn't even cover the cost of finding the people, let alone giving them the food. So if somebody else is doing that, okay, let me just help you, and then if I can help you, that helps more people than I would be able to help trying to do it on my own. So that to me, though, is not a random act of kindness. That's planned. It's intentional, but it's planned. Random acts of kindness is something more like what Ryan was talking about with the chocolate bars. It's just when you are in a position to do something that you do it out of kindness. Okay, and there are numbers of opportunities that present themselves. So when we get a mind's eye to be in the framework of, the frame of mind of saying, when I see a need, when I can do it, I will do it. And position yourself so that you do it without a sense of like forethought. Okay. Now, so what does that mean? How does that translate? In the prison, we do one project that is greeting cards, okay? And we set up this process, and we make handmade greeting cards. It's one group that's called a compassionate outreach group. We make handmade greeting cards, and the envelopes too are handmade. We make them out of sheets of paper, and we'll have a day twice a year where we invite inmates who want to be a part of it to come up, and we will show them how to make the greeting cards. And we have like little stencils, and people can color it and stuff like that. For those who don't have artistic ability, for those who have artistic ability, we just give them the paper and they can draw whatever they want on it to make those greeting cards. And then we give them regular 20 bond paper and show them how to fold that paper in order to make an envelope to fit the cards that they make. And basically, we provide them the paper. For the cards, we actually take the paper and we cut it in half, because that allows us to make a card that will fit in the 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, that they can make from regular paper. Okay, so other than that, we don't, and we have some stencils that are plexiglass that was cut with a laser, that they can just sort of make, and they can overlay them. So in other words, we can make various unique greeting cards for those people. So what happens is we have our network out of like our eyes and ears. And if somebody's mother dies, they have a birthday, one of their gang members gets shot on the outside, or something like that, we send them a card, and we'll just say, hey man, we heard something not so good happened to you, or we understand that you're just about the time of your birthday. Happy birthday. Well, we understand that you had a loss in your family. You just know that you have brothers in here who feel for you even if they can't reach you, or something like that. Some simple message like that. So now, this isn't an expensive thing. It's not, but it's something that people can do randomly. In other words, we just do it whenever, whoever needs it, we do it. There's no plan to it, but we just do it. And the little thing, like, it doesn't cost you anything. The cost of that card is like zero, really. 2 pieces of paper. Try to put that in your budget and try to figure out how much that costs. It's not even a dime, that's for sure. but it means a lot to people. And the example I like to give, though there are many examples, but an example I like to give is one time a guy came up to one of our meetings and he said, I'm not really a joiner or anything, but I got this card not so long ago. And he said, I'm over 60 years old. And this is the first greeting card I ever got in my life. You know, that's deep. To have somebody who's over 60 and they never got a card, they never had a birthday card, they never had any kind of card. That's a random act of kindness. He didn't know where this was coming from. But he said, I didn't know who did this, but I just wanted to come up and see who these people were, because I don't know what you guys are doing up here, but I need some of that. I want to be a part of that, you know. It kind of operates like that. If you do something for someone do something kind for people, what I find is it positions them to do kind things for other people. Because if nothing else, it takes away that excuse of nobody ever did anything for me, so why should I do anything for anybody? Suddenly, that's harder to come out of your mouth now, because somebody who didn't even really, you don't know them. They did it as a group. You don't know who was the one who made that card. Their name is not on it. They don't know you, but they just feel for you. Somebody that had nothing to gain from you did something nice to you or for you. That to me is an extremely easy way for everybody to contribute a little bit of something good every day, you know, and it doesn't cost them a lot. I want to, there are many opportunities now there for us to do random acts of kindness. So I have kind of like two questions. If you have anything to add to what I've said, or it prompts you to say something else about random acts of kindness, there are many more things to say about it, but I'm not going to, take all the oxygen in the room here. I would like you to feel free to offer that. But I would like to also ask if you can think of, just brainstorming here, any opportunities that you can think of that there are ways for you to position yourself to do random acts of kindness. We've heard Ryan's example. We also heard Dr. Woodard talk about, how, people would, and his family talked about being positioned to do random acts of kindness. And also Lee talked about her husband and his way. And then Lynn talked about his way. We've had some. Can you think of opportunities or ways to position yourself to just be kind? Just kind of brainstorm here.
I think there are many opportunities, especially in this year of the pandemic. I'm more and more inclined to want to reach out to people online, of course. We're quarantining, to see what, if anything, I can do to lift their spirits. And these are mostly people I know, either good friends or casually. But once in a while, I'll see an opportunity to reach out to somebody I don't know. Maybe it's just offer a compliment for something I've read or seen. But I think it's especially important now to look for ways to reach out to others and hearten them, because so much of what's going on is disheartening. And so that's my idea.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Anyone else?
I've had so many acts of kindness received in so many different ways in my life. I won't go into my life, but it's been very bumpy. from years now. Just in this week, I got a text. Somebody said, there's something outside your door. And here was this sack with a book that I had liked. She heard me say it, and goodies in it, and humus, and they made, etc. When I had my first life, I call it my first life. My husband was in a nursing home. 7 years, 50 miles away. I had to travel every day after work. Okay. And the holidays came, and they knew that my family was coming to my house for Christmas. And I walked through the office and the office staff and the whole, I was at a school, middle school, had all brought dishes and things and foods, every kind you can imagine that I could freeze and keep, and said, Merry Christmas. I could just go on, giving me rides, letting me use their car because my car was broken down for a long time. And I learn, you learn, I've learned from others. You look until it becomes automatic. What can I do for that person? How can I help them? What would they need? Rather than saying, well, if you need anything, call me. Give them an idea of what would be. I can do your laundry for you. Would that help? Or give them choices. And so I guess you learn from others, listen to them, know what they like. And it doesn't have to be a big thing. One of the things I did, and the only reason I'm telling you is because somebody said, why were you talking to that big black man? And I said, what? And they said, well, this garbage man came up. It was a really hot day. And I had forgotten. It was sometime in the summer. I don't know. And I was out getting my mail, and he was running from place to place. And I had seen him, a couple of weeks ago, something was flying down the street. He ran after it to get to the garbage so it wouldn't go in the community. And I had said something to him, and he said, oh, you noticed it? And I said, yeah. And I said, boy, this is awfully hot job. I said, you really need water to drink. You need water. And he said, well, I don't have any more. And I said, just a second. So I went in and got him some bottles, and they were wondering what I was giving this garbage man. And I said, he's a human being. But that's what I'm saying. You become more aware of it, I think. By example of
That's a very good example, Lee. And it's a very good reminder that when we do these random acts of kindness, they are seen. They're seen and felt by the person that you do it to, but other people do it too. And it gives them actually permission to be kind as well. A lot of people, it's kind of like, again, in the prison, there are people in the prison who want to be kind, but they're afraid that by being kind to others, or being seen as being kind to others, they will be seen as weak and a patsy, and people will take advantage of them. All right. So when we commit random acts of kindness and other people see it, it actually gives them permission. It gives them kind of, well, I'm in that community of people who are kind. I don't feel like I'm isolated. I don't feel like I have to be on the bleeding edge of some kind of hippie ideal. I can actually be kind, and it's okay. It's okay to be kind. So that's a very important aspect of random act of kindness as well. Anyone else?
You're talking about random acts of kindness today?
Yeah, that's right. And we're looking for opportunities. What are some ideas or opportunities, ways that we can commit random acts of kindness?
Oh,
A
I'll
smile.
join in. Oh, go ahead, Naima.
Oh, no, I'm gonna shut up. I'm gonna wait.
I just wanted to share. So I'm new to Brookings since August. And as you guys know, I live in Volga. And my neighbors have actually gone out of their way to just come over and introduce themselves. And they've snowblowed the sidewalk and helped me rake leaves. And we found a stray cat that I took in. I love animals and founded a home. And it's been really cool to, I've never really had neighbors open up to me that much before. And so it was really cool to just have some really kind people in the neighborhood, really welcoming.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What I was, oh, Barb, you're just beautiful. What I was going to speak of from another perspective, when I was going to say a smile is so empowering. 9/11 happened, and I had different things happening, such as I was driving bus at that time. And if you know what a niqabi is, that's what I was. I was hired that way. And I'm driving the bus and 9/11 happens and the world turned around. We're talking about people not wanting to even smile at you.
Mm.
And I had somebody point a gun at me, a finger gun, while I was driving the bus. And the people, he was a tall guy, he pointed into or at me, and he went past a couple people. And I had to report it, of course, because I had a busload of children. And before I even got back to the barn, as they call it, there was a police report from a random citizen speaking of what happened. And people at that bus stop that next day came up to the window and said, "We got your back." And that was my first experience with white people saying, "We got your back," because that's kind of like a black thing. I said, "Ooh, look at that, to me Ebonics over there. That's pretty cool." And that was something that happened. And when we moved to Brookings area, I was doing surveys for census, and I would not go on the campus one day before, the day of, and the day after 9/11 because everybody got kind of crazy and just got all jacked up again and so on. But every once in a while, I would go into Hy-Vee because, you got to eat. And I had people smiling at me. One woman came and grabbed my hand and just smiled. She didn't say a word. She just smiled, the biggest smile ever. And I'm telling you, that warmed the cockles of my heart to a point where I'm very glad I'm not on camera because you could see the tears coming down. And a random act of kindness, of a smile. You never know what somebody's going through during the day. And that smile, I'm telling you what, I didn't go in there because all of you that know me know that I don't hang my head because I'm a proud woman. I wasn't feeling all that good because I knew that it was 9/11 and I'm a Black woman Muslim. Boy, after she grabbed my hand and just smiled at me and didn't say a word, I was like in Wakanda. Stuff was bouncing off of me and whatnot because there were glances, and I just walked through and I felt so good with that random act of kindness. And I have it all the time, actually. And then after that, I felt that, I must be the queen of the universe, which I do put in here every once in a while because people they're always smiling. And that might be because I'm always smiling. You know, I get up on the right side of the dirt, because if I'm able to walk into a store, that means that I got a little bit going on. So I'm always grateful.
Mm.
And I have seen so many random acts of kindness. And like you're saying, Lawrence, I see it, other people see it, and it just kind of, you know, it's a groundswell. It's like the pay it forward. And it doesn't necessarily have to be rural South Dakota, but if I might say, I have found rural South Dakota to be an incredibly warming and welcoming place. I've said it before, I might be Black, a Muslim and whatnot, and people might not like Black people or Muslims or whatever, but by golly, they defend me pretty good. Maybe they're gonna beat me later because, you know, I'm theirs, but I don't know. You know, who knows what it is. But people ask me, why are you in South Dakota? And I say, because I'm at the right place at the right time. God sent me, I'm here, there's a mission, and there's that always that thing that says, grow where you're planted. And by golly, whew, I can't get no more grow seed because I done got big up in here.
Naima, how did you come to South Dakota?
Child, we don't have enough time.
Oh, okay.
The long story short, there was a woman in Bushnell who had we do reenactments. I play Harriet Tubman, right? And so we had gotten close doing reenactments and things like that. And there was a group online of Muslim people. My husband is interested in the Victorian period and whatnot, and he's from the Netherlands, and they don't do reenactments too much over there. And so one thing led to another. He happened to be a Muslim from the Netherlands. It's just like, huh? You know, deer in the headlights, what? And there was conversation. To make a long story short, she called me and says, I have your husband online. Because I had told the Muslim community, if you want me to be married, you find him, you take care of that whole situation, because there was a whole lot of green card kind of marriage, and I'm not the one. You say you love God, you're going to act like you don't, I'm not the one. Anyway, so long story, really, really long story, and I'll shorten it up. We're here. We talked, we got the blessings from both of our imams, and we were married. Then, you know, we could say, oh, and then, you know, wouldn't be in trouble, you know, because you're not, yeah. So we came to Bushnell to see the area that she lived in. We fell in love. We had a young lady, two young ladies from the university walking side by side in Walmart, and they were having such a good time, and they almost ran into us. And the girl just jumped. She said, oh my God, oh, I'm so sorry. Are you okay? I said, yeah, you didn't touch me or anything. Oh, I'm so sorry. And I said, whoa. Then it happened again with young people. And then I looked to my husband, I said, you know what, we got to find Opie. And I said it to a couple other people. And that's the way we felt. We felt that this Opie kind of Andy Griffin, and it's not lack of technology or anything, it was that Opie kind of thing. And we found Opie this year. He is a Black standard poodle, and we saw him on the Brookings market. Yep. That's the short of it, but we can talk a little bit more. But we decided we were going to move here when we retired. My dad died in 2005, and we moved back, and well, now I'm here with all you beautiful people that I've met.
Thank you for sharing.
Oh, you're welcome. We'll talk more because there is more, you know.
I'll give you my number.
All right. I'm looking in the private section here.
Okay.
Anyone else have any opportunity? We've heard some really good ones. And I really like to underscore this idea of smiling, because that's one of the cheapest random acts of kindness you can do, but it goes a long way, you know. And to as an example, Naima was talking about, you know, like being a Muslim woman, and I actually have a story that happened in Brookings at the Hy-Vee there. They had hired this very young Muslim woman, and as a checker. And it happened in that day. I guess it was at the beginning of her stay there, her job there. And I came, and it was actually a busy time there. And there were all these people were lined up, to get to check out their groceries. And here's this woman, and nobody's in her line. Everybody else is willing to wait 10, 15, 20 minutes to get to the checking stand. But here's this one woman, they could just sort of like walk up and nobody's in her line. And she was standing there crying. She wasn't bawling, but there were tears rolling down her eyes because here she was ready, and nobody had to say anything, but it was a public rejection of her as a cashier, right? And I saw that, and I got out of the line and went to her line and just said, sister, it's going to get better. It's going to get better. Just hang in there. It's going to get better. The last time I was in Hy-Vee, which wasn't recent, but the last time I was in Hy-Vee, she was still there. She had people going to her line, and she was smiling, And I think, like just giving people that kind of reprieve, just being able to go and say, hey, there's somebody here who loves you, it's gonna be okay. Everybody, this was like sometimes when you flip a coin and you get 5 times heads and you think, well, it's always gonna be heads, there's gonna be some tails, it evens out. And then there's going to be a time when you get 5 tails too. So it all works out, So, but being able to just smile, and give somebody that, even people you don't know, even if they're not in crisis, the smile says to them, I see you, I connect with you, that eye contact, just to say, I recognize you. Because a lot of people, I don't think they still have accepted that they exist, so they're trying to prove not only their existence, but their worth. And when you give them the smile and eye contact, you both give them the sense that you think that they exist. Maybe neither of you exist, but you think that they exist, and they're worth a smile. You want to connect with them. Any other ideas of?
I might add,
Like what you said, I did that every day when I taught. So at first grade, would call Mr. So-and-so or Mrs. or Miss, and they were thrilled. But it was just that little saying hi to them or hi to other kids in the hall, because you never knew if that would be the only time anyone else spoke to them all day. You never knew. Some kids had lots of verbal content, but some had none. No one ever said anything to them, acknowledge their existence or anything. And you never knew, you might be the one time that someone said hi to them. And that made their day. You just never knew, and it was so easy to do, and it brought joy to somebody. You never knew who.
Excellent point, Deb. Excellent point.
So this is Alphonse. I've been trying to dig deep to figure out what has this phrase been about for me, and it just finally hit a few minutes ago when I was looking up. What is the origin of this particular expression? And it's a pretty recent origin, early 1990s. And by the way, a little factoid, there is in fact a National Random Acts of Kindness Day on February 17th. All right, so the realization that I've come to is very much consistent with being a person who's in Boulder, Colorado, where there's a very strong form of counterculture behavior. And I used to work with a number of people in the counterculture environment. And we did things around the whole Earth catalog, Buckminster Fuller and other people like that. And it's like, oh yeah, that's why it's been so hard for me to make the connection, because it really is, as one of our former rodeo clowns said, it's really in me, that to the point that it's never needed to be expressed. It is a way of being that I adopted, embraced fully, and it has always been there in what I do and my day-to-day activities. But it's been interesting to listen to everybody else and then to recognize where is that hidden deeply within myself, and then reading about where it came from in the whole counterculture environment. I mean, not saying that people haven't been performing random acts of kindness in the history of the world before 1993, but it's just that phrase, the expression, is a pretty recent one from what I've been able to read thus far.
Excellent. And I think you make a really good point, Alphonse, that this is, even though we may newly coin a phrase, the idea goes back almost as far as people writing. I mean, the Good Samaritan was, one of the stories of a random act of kindness. Here's a guy, he just sort of comes up on this guy, and this guy looks like he needs some help. He couldn't be more clear. And hey, take care of it. And if you need some more money, I'll be back. You know me, I'll be back, and just hit me up. But just make sure you take care of this guy and that he's okay. So it's not new, but let's say the way that we say it, random act of kindness, sort of points it out. It puts it on the shelf. It frames it, and so we can be, let's say, more intentional about being random. So there's that. Dr. Woodard.
Well, I was going to add, thinking again of my mother's legacy, my grandmother and then my mother. She modeled making it known that she cared, and I aspire to that, to find ways to make people know that I care, whether or not there's specific opportunity. In my mother's case, she not only mothered us, but she mothered a lot of other kids in our little town, and she became known for that. She became known as the lady who would listen to us and help us. And I've had so many people through the years, my mother's been gone for several years, say that to me, that they so much appreciated my mother's kindness, in some cases where they really needed it, because she was especially attentive to kids who weren't treated so kindly, but they could get it from my mom. And, it's a wonderful legacy. My dad was like that too. He had a little gas station, and people still laugh about this. He had a big candy case, and he lost money on it because he constantly gave candy away to kids. And he especially gave it to kids who probably didn't have the money to buy it, and just stand there looking longingly at the candy case. And it's interesting to me that each time somebody has said this to me, kind of like that person thought that my dad singled them out. But what I know is Dad responded to kids always that way. And so I'm proud of my parents. They're remembered as people who care. And so if other people know you for that, I think they're encouraged. They're heartened.
Very good example. I love that example. And a parallel example of that is, let's say you see a kid drawing or something, and you just stop for a moment and say, "Oh, that's interesting. What is that? What are you trying? Why did you choose that color?" And give that kid a chance to express themselves, where for many kids, the whole world is saying, speak when you're spoken to, and only answer the question that you're answering. You never have a chance to express yourself. And without that expression, it's hard to develop the sense of who you really think you are. When you say it out loud to other people, it almost forces you to take responsibility for it, and you either change it or whatever. But without that, it's really hard to have a sense that anyone cares what you think, or anyone cares that you even exist. And taking the time for someone who is trying to express something based on, based on the fact that they're drawing, so they're expressing something, and just showing an interest. They have the opportunity to say, well, none of your damn business, and then go away. But at least you give them that opportunity, to share something. And there are many opportunities, I think, that exist around us, just to say, I care enough to know what you're feeling now. How are you feeling now? Or how did you see that? Giving people, I like to ask people questions because that's a selfish thing, because I like to see from their eyeballs. And I can see from their eyeballs things I know I can't see from mine. And I know it doesn't threaten me, because I know I don't have to buy it. Sometimes I trick people, I think, because I'll ask them about something and they misinterpret it to think I'm asking for their advice. And I'm just asking for their point of view, not their advice. And so they think, well, if you don't do what I said, then you know that you didn't value my advice. Well, I wasn't asking for your advice. I just wanted to know what you think. But that said, we have many opportunities to make people feel valuable. And that's a very important gift. Any other opportunities that you see?
I was just thinking, we all remember someone, or maybe more than one, somebody that paid attention to you when I was little, and I'm still short, but when I was little, it was so nice to have someone get down to your level and talk to you and stuff. That made you feel like you were important, you were noticed and stuff, rather than just adults talking to adults that never paid any attention to you. But and you remember those people for years and years, and it was no big deal. They didn't do anything really special, but it made an impact on you.
Very good example, Deb. Just getting to people's level. It's a much better approach than mine, which is to lift the little people up and talk to them. So your approach, I think, is much better.
That works too, but I couldn't lift anyone up.
Anyone else have some opportunities, ideas of opportunities that people can find, ways to find opportunities to commit random acts of kindness?
Did y'all define what a random act of kindness is?
We did at the top of the hour. but you can define it however you want to. You're not limited to our definition, because there were different ideas that people had.
Well, I'll go back and look at the recording.
No,
my question, and it's throwing things in a different way, but yet and still the same. With Native American cultures and with indigenous people cultures and so on and so forth, random acts of kindness in many ways wasn't necessary, because like the beautiful thing that Deb did, there was an auntie that did it. And some of the other things that I've heard Charles talking about his family, that was the way of the village. And I'm wondering if when I noticed there was a problem with latchkey kids and so on, where did that start? And can we mend it from where we are to go back? I know people aren't going to necessarily be in a village, so to say, although this is a village. People really like being here. I could name a few. But is there a way to get back to having it in many ways not be a random act of kindness. It's just like Charles and Dad, you know, hey, you could see that this one needed to feel special, and you make them feel special. And Deb, what everybody has been talking about, is there a way to get to that, or is that next week?
Yeah, well, there's an assignment on this one, and so yes, there will be a next week. But to answer your question, that what you expressed really is a random act of kindness. In other words, we may be newly putting a name to it, but it's not new, and people have been doing it. What I'm really trying to do in this conversation is kind of make it come to the top in terms of top of mind or front of mind. So, because if we start to practice it, and if somebody points out to anyone that it's valuable and they point it out to someone or they act on it, then it gives us an opportunity to expand it and do exactly what you're saying, Naima. That is really the point of this, is that we start doing it more because we think, oh yeah, that thing I was doing, I did maybe 10 of those last month. Maybe I could do 11 this month. You know, maybe I don't even have to count, or I can't count, but I can rethink positioning myself to do it and recognizing my position and that I am in position to do it. I'll give you an example because I like to give examples. Once I was working in a radio station, okay, and this station was the station to like the stockbrokers and stuff, but it was like a #1 station in San Francisco. And I was making good money, but the station was making much better money, of course, than I was. But more important, we had a lot of sponsors. So at Thanksgiving time, and we did it again at Christmas, I happened to know, because I had worked in what we call street work before, where my job was like stopping gang wars and stuff like that. And so I knew a bunch of guys who were still, you know, sort of doing that kind of different kind of work. And also knew some people who were in social work, because some of my friends, they were social workers and stuff like that. So I got this idea. I said, hey, look, you know, we have people here who are advertising on our station. They're grocery stores and people selling turkeys and stuff like that. A couple of commercials and we can have a truckload of turkeys. Just trade them. You just say, hey, we'll give you 2 more extra commercials if you'll give us, and some publicity, if you'll give us a truckload of turkeys. And so I went to the salespeople and said, hey, look, I need this many turkeys and I need this and that. And then the management heard what I was conning these guys into, and they said, well, we'll throw in the truck and we'll throw in some money. You can buy the vegetables and everything else you need to go with it, you know? So I called up my friends and said, hey, you get the list. And me and one of my friends who, you know, he had gone on to be an executive and things, and we called up a few people to help us organize this thing. And we ended up setting up an all-night thing of like putting all these turkeys and things in a box. We rented a more or less it was a big truck, the biggest we could get without having to have a special license. We filled it up. We had people, volunteers, to help us to deliver the stuff. And we delivered turkeys to people, you know, like all night, you know, and the people, we just roll up to their house and say, hey, here's your turkey. But I couldn't have done that by myself, but I was positioned to do it. I was positioned to just go and talk to a few people and make all of this happen, right? Another case is I was at a youth group and they were supposed to be going on a trip. And the bus that they were supposed to to take these kids on a trip, it wasn't coming. They couldn't get in. They couldn't get the people. They had chartered a bus and they couldn't. Now the day of the thing, they got all these kids. And so I said, what do you mean you can't get it? They said, well, they won't, the bus company is not sending the bus, and we got all these kids and they were expecting a picnic and everything, and we don't know what to do. I said, wait a minute. So I get on the phone and I called the municipal bus company, told them who I was because I was a celebrity, told them who I was, and I said, hey, I need 2 buses. because these kids, and told them the story. And they said, no problem. 30 minutes later, there was 2 buses there to take these kids on a picnic. It was just a phone call, right? Because I was positioned to do it. So many of us, maybe you don't have to be a quote celebrity, but you're positioned just because of who you know and the contacts you have to extend that to somebody else, right? So that's a random act of kindness. You just position yourself to do it. And then other people see it. Now, some of those kids who went on the picnic, I still have relationships with those kids and their kids. You know, so that's my payoff. It's all good. Yeah.
I might say something more about Native American philosophy mentioned a few minutes ago. This idea of relationship. People in this area have a saying which roughly translates into all my relatives. And it goes beyond humankind. I'm related to all that is, other creatures, you know, sister deer, brother buffalo, and so forth. But within the human realm, this idea of relationship, which is in some ways more powerful than merely biological relationship, and to think and behave in relationship terms. So that's community, thinking of everyone as relative to you and regard them as such. Early in my teaching career, it occurred to me that I should never objectify students, make assumptions about them, but I should always think of them as relatives. And I would say that to them once in a while. I'm not going to make you uncomfortable by adopting literally what American Indians have always thought, but I want you to know that it's important to me to think of you as daughters and sons, and then later granddaughters and grandsons, because it completely changes the dynamic to think of another human being, any human being, as a relative. And I've always valued that. I've learned many things from American Indians, but that may be the most important thing, this idea of comprehensive relationship to everyone and to all that is. So that, you know, it's an environmental perspective for one thing, because you're considerate of other beings, you think of them as relatives and are in that kind of relationship to them. So, Brother Lawrence, that's all I have to say about that.
And Brother Charles. Great. Anyone else? Some opportunities. Give us some examples, because that'll help in our assignment for next week.
This is for younger people who shall remain unnamed. I was a junior. I was in high school. I think I was a junior. Well, anyway, Humphrey was vice president then. And I had run into him in the governor's mansion. That's another long story, Jessica. And but anyway, we had this writing campaign, because I was a junior. A lot of the senior boys were in the service, and we were writing. And this one young man sent to me and said, "We need some help. We don't have enough toiletries." And I said, "Oh, okay." And you know, back in the day, that was writing. That was actually a couple weeks in between, not tweeting. And so then I asked, "Well, what do you need?" So a couple weeks later, he sent back, and I said, "Okay, that's good." You know, and I asked my mom if I could get involved in something, and she looked at me, "What now?" And then I told her, and then I asked the school if I could get a campaign going. And just like what you were saying, you get people involved because people want to do something. It's our nature. We always want to do something. And I don't think that's gone anywhere. I think we still do that. And so my mom had talked to the school and said, well, yeah, she'll get a little bit, because they were a little worried. And she said, yeah, a couple truckloads. 3 semis later, I got this telegram, because that's how long ago it was. I got this telegram from the vice president saying, I knew when I ran into you, again, a long story. I knew when I ran into you that there was going to be more happening. Good to see you. Thank you very much, young lady. And I lost it. It was framed and I lost it. But I was a junior in high school and they expected 3 truckloads and it was 3 semis. And I mean, 3M and oh, so the other thing I would say is just never, ever think that you can't do it. I was a junior in high school. And there was no way that I didn't think that this would happen, that we would be able to get our guys the stuff. And they shipped it for free too. A company, I don't know, it was Right Price or what, they shipped it over there for free. So yeah, I never figure that it's not going to be, not is not in my vocabulary, or it's on the way out. Reach for it. Reach for it. Always reach for it.
As you can see, there are many opportunities, and they go on. And I would challenge you to think of more opportunities. For example, just paying people compliments, just noticing something about them. And especially when people do something that's courageous and stands up for other people, or something that, a trait that you admire, letting people know that, let them, the I see you is really important to human beings, because so many people feel almost like dead because nobody seems to recognize them. Nobody seems to appreciate their effort to do something good, And if they do something bad, everyone is like making point of that. They make a note of that and try to never let them forget it. But when they do something good, it's like they're ignored. So the complimenting of people making even the effort, or better yet, you see someone making an effort to do something good and you step up to help them. That is an acknowledgement that's very important to people. And if we want to make the world better, there are few ways that equal that, because it has a multiplying effect when you can help somebody who's trying to do something good for someone else, and who's trying to stand up for an idea that brings humanity together and allows people to have fuller lives. When you just put in just a little bit of effort, it's amazing how that pushes the thing forward, pushes the effort forward. Like someone was saying, their grandpa or somebody or father would pick up, I think it was Lee, or somebody who would pick up some paper. Just picking up that cigarette butt, it's amazing how we've shown. I remember when I was working with that whole gang thing, I was saying I was working with gang things. One of the things we did is we organized the gangs to clean up the streets. And at first there was, of course, some resistance, and they said, what the heck, why? We don't just, people don't think we punks, man. Just getting, no. He said, that's a garbage man job. Hey, it's your community, Here's what you get out of it. People now just see you as a gangster. If you go out and you clean up the streets, that at least confuses them. even if it don't change their mind, it confuses them because now they got to have this other picture that messes with their mind. Like, and they were all about messing with people's minds. So yeah, I had their attention then, But more important, the interesting thing is when people see gang leaders and gang members cleaning the streets, suddenly they feel like, well, to be as good a person as that, I have to clean the streets too. So if nothing else, you get it on a roll, and for some of those people, it was a life-changing event. Not that they become goody two-shoes, but for once, people came out and said, hey, I really appreciate that, young man. That's a really good thing you're doing. The first time anybody had noticed that they did anything good, So just compliments, just doing something nice, just helping those people and, say, hey, I really appreciate that, that you did this good thing, when you're public or, political representative, your congressman or somebody, when they do something good, call them up, write them a letter and say something good about them, those kind of things too. Those are random acts of kindness too. Okay, so with that, I'll turn to our assignment. So next week, I'd like to continue this important conversation, but with a twist. In the week coming up, I'd like you to pay attention to and look for ways, look for ways and pay attention to random acts of kindness. Whether you do it or whether you see someone else do it, to look around and to think about, now that we've had this discussion, more ways that you can commit random acts of kindness and be now aware of more people doing random acts of kindness. And when you do, the mind has a way of forgetting things. Could you just write them down so that you'll have a list or two? And I'd like to compare lists next week because there are two objectives here. One is we get to share those random acts of kindness and then show people what is being done. And at the same time, it gives us more ideas of things that we can do as random acts of kindness. Many people want to do things, but they can't, it just doesn't occur to them that that's an important thing to anybody. It's like if you grow up in a family where people are always smiling, then smiling just sort of fades into the paint job on the walls. You don't even notice that people are smiling. But if nobody's smiling, then somebody suddenly, the brain pays attention to things that are different. Okay. So maybe it's just a matter of bringing out some things and then saying, oh yeah, I used to do that, or I saw somebody do that. Well, maybe I can do that. And then hopefully the people who join this conversation can go forth and do more more random acts of kindness. And we can start an avalanche right from here of random acts of kindness. I think I got something in the chat here. It would be interesting too for you to do one act of kindness, and then when you do that, also tell us what was your experience like. What was the thing that you did? What was the random act of kindness that you committed? And what did you feel like? And what happened? People don't always respond in the way that you anticipate to a random acts of kindness. I'd like to hear those stories of what you did in this next week, not for 2 years ago or last month, but in the week coming up, to go out and find a random act of kindness and then tell us what that was, even if it falls on its face, you know, because like I say, they don't always turn out good, but what else works 1,000% of the time, you know, or even 100%. So go, you know, like do some random act of kindness, and next week tell us what that story was. You know, what story did you have as a result of that? Does anybody have any questions about the assignment? Is that all clear? Mhm.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, good. Well, we're almost at the end. I will see you all next week, and I hope to hear some exciting stories and adventures that you will have as a result of committing random acts of kindness. And with that, we'll say, see you next week.